Alright. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting daily vlog. This is daily vlog number 158. Today, I'm exhausted, and creativity, I'm spent. So, I've been meaning to make a video about this for a couple days now because the news been out for a couple of days, but Demiplane, which is the company that runs the Demiplane Nexus website, which is basically D&D Beyond for not D&D, despite the fact that I think they're getting D&D stuff, if I remember correctly. Anyway, it has been purchased by Roll20, the virtual tabletop, the free virtual tabletop that I have been using for almost a decade now, that I absolutely adore. And I've mentioned this before on the channel. I am a massive fan of Demiplane. For my Designing New Dragons series I did for Avatar Legends, that's where I built all my characters, because when I backed Avatar Legends, one of the stretch goals they unlocked for it was a Demiplane, bunch of Demiplane character sheets and character builders and stuff like that. And so my digital versions of Avatar The Last Airbender, I have PDFs of them, but then I also have all the books on Demiplane, and I have, the character builder and everything like that. And it's phenomenal. I love everything about it. So the fact that it's been purchased by Roll20, they've already started talking about how they're going to kind of integrate things together. One of the questions that was asked on their FAQ about it, their frequently asked questions, was if I own stuff on Demiplane, do I get it on Roll20 and vice versa? And apparently, according to the FAQ, Roll20 is having some conversations with the license owners of various things, various people that own that stuff. So, wow, brain is just gone, guys. Apparently, they've spoken with Paizao, who the people that own Pathfinder, and Pathfinder. I think Pathfinder and Starfinder both have Demiplane Nexuses so far. And they've talked to the few other license holders that if you own this stuff on Roll20, you will automatically have it unlocked for Demiplane. But officially, the conversations are still going on about that. That is not confirmed or anything. That's just them going, hey, this is what we want to happen. Whether or not that will happen is not entirely up to Roll20. It'll be up to the agreement that Roll20 and the license holders own. Or create, I mean. So, still though, I think that's really cool. Roll20 character sheets are generally not bad, but I would never describe them as like really great. They, the coding used to make them is just not really well designed for character sheets. And even the character sheets that I really, really like I ran an open legend game for almost 6 years exclusively using Roll20 to do it. And it worked fine. But it wasn't great. All of my daily December campaigns, and the 1 year that I did the 4 different one-shots, those are all run through Roll20. Things like the Power Rangers character sheet is fine. It's not great, but it works. The Fabula Ultima character sheet is fine. It's not great, but it works. So, there we go. When you compare that to the Demiplane Nexus sites, they're just really good. Like, there really isn't another way to describe it other than They look like the character sheets that you get in the whatever system that you're using. The character sheets look like they come from that system. Specific, it looks like whatever the example of a character sheet in the core book is. That's what the Demiplane character sheets look like, which is really hard to do. And they're all interactive. So if you have Demiplane open, just like if you have D&D Beyond open on like your tablet or something, you can use that as your character sheet when you're playing D&D, where you just, you can tap it to auto roll and it can keep track of your hit points and all that. All of that exists in Demiplane, except it's not just D&D. So yeah, I am super, super excited that that's happening, because again, I love Roll20. I hate the kind of, I don't know why, but Roll20 has a really bad connotation around it in a lot of the online tabletop RPG spaces. And part of that is due to the fact that when Roll20 first launched, it was not good. But it was one of the only virtual tabletops out there. And I think at that point it was the only free one. All the other ones you had to pay for. And the ones that you paid for generally had more features and were a little bit more polished. And so it got this reputation that it was like, oh, that's the El Cheapo, really, really low grade version that if you don't want to invest in your games, you can just run them on Roll20. And again, that was true 8 or 9 years ago. Nowadays, though, Roll20 can do everything that any other paid virtual tabletop can do. And a lot of times they do it, for me personally, they do it in a more intuitive way. Like I've played Fantasy Grounds. What's the other really big one that's on Steam? I've messed around with a couple different virtual tabletops, and they all just tend to add additional steps and stuff like that. It kind of in the same way that people say that like 3rd edition and Pathfinder is quote unquote more customizable than D&D. And it's not, it's just more complicated. You have to do you have to do extra steps to do the exact same thing in 3rd edition compared to 5th edition. That's how I feel about things like Fantasy Grounds and other things like that. Foundry, that's the other one. Is that the interfaces themselves used to look a little bit sharper. They looked like they were done on purpose, whereas the old version of the Roll20 interface looked like they accidentally created a UI. Now it looks a lot better. They've upgraded it relatively recently, like within the last year or two. And it looks really sharp and it works very, very well. But it always felt like, in an effort to make their tabletops look that much more complex and that much more customizable, they just made everything take longer. And they just added a bunch of different unnecessary steps that just don't exist in Roll20. Now, again, part of that, I have a heavy bias to Roll20 because, again, I've been using it for nearly a decade. It makes sense to me because I've been using it for a decade. So, everything that they do is going to be based on previous versions, which I already am familiar with. Because I don't use Foundry or Fantasy Grounds regularly, they've had upgrades and they've had changes over the years, and they're probably significantly better than they used to be. But I don't understand the original way that they did it, so I don't understand how much better this system is than the old system. So it is very possible that things are easier to run on Fantasy Grounds or Foundry or any of the other virtual tabletops out there. But I understand Roll20. It's a solid system. The Roll20 marketplace is really, really great. For my Fabula Ultima mini campaign, I went and I actually, for the first time, I actually bought assets off of the Fantasy Ground Marketplace, and they were so awesome. I didn't realize just the massive amount of cool things that existed on there. Like, one of the things I didn't know existed was the idea of clocks. Clocks are a really, really big part of Fabula Ultima. If you've never played it, clocks are basically just a visual representation of something that requires multiple successes to succeed in, or multiple failures to fail in. That's all they are. Is it's a circle. You divide it into sections, and then as they do things, you fill the sections. That's how a clock works. It is unbelievably simple in concept, but Fabula Ultimate's a core aspect of the game. Is they use clocks for a bunch of different systems, and I love it because it actually reminds me of skills challenges from D&D 5th edition. Skills challenges were something that was unique, or not 5th edition, 4th edition. They were something unique to 4th edition, and they were probably one of the best additions to 4th edition. Basically what they were, instead of, like in every other version of D&D, if you're in combat, you have to make multiple checks to be able to kill a monster, generally through multiple attacks and stuff like that. Other than at first level, it's very rare for you to just go around one-shotting all the monsters. However, for skills challenges, it was always, oh, well then roll me this check. Did you succeed? Okay, then you got it. Did you fail? Okay, then you didn't get it. And skills challenges in general, whether that's picking a lock or negotiating a price with a guard or disarming a magical trap or something, like all of these things were just relegated to a single die roll, and that was boring. Skills challenges changed that. You could create a skills challenge, and there were actually rules about that they created for, how difficult the DC should be based on your level, and how many successes versus how many failures should happen in order to make it challenging for whatever level it was. They were really great. And the basic premise of them is a skills challenge. You had to get so many successes before so many failures. And the general formula was you would have to get like 4 successes before 2 failures, or 6 successes before 3 failures. It was basically half as many failures as you needed successes for. And a perfect example of how to use them was actually done by Chris Perkins. Chris Perkins ran a celebrity game. In 4th edition, Chris Perkins is going around just running celebrity games all the time to advertise 4th edition. That's where Acquisitions Incorporated came from. At Gen Con one year, he got a bunch of Forgotten Realms authors together, like Ed Greenwood, Ari Salvatore, all those people. I think Troy Denning might have been there. He had them sit down at a table and brought up one member of the audience to play with them, and they played a one-shot in 4th edition. Well, one of the other things he did was he got some of the people that work on Robot Chicken to sit down and play a game with him. And he ran them through this one-shot, and it was really cool. At the end, they come to this room where there's this large crystal in the center with a big kind of summoning circle around it, and then a bunch of baddies. And this combat was different because it was combat with a skills challenge. What the skills challenge was the big crystal in the center and the summoning circle, they were attempting to summon something really, really bad. And so the goal of the combat was not kill all the bad guys. The goal of the combat was stop the summoning before it completes and summons a really powerful monster. And so the way they had to do it, I don't remember how many successes versus failures, but they had to get so many successes trying to interrupt the ritual before so many failures, or the ritual would complete and a really powerful monster would appear that they had to then fight. And the way that they got successes, anyone could go and roll an Arcana check to just kind of magic it out. But also, they could try doing things like you could roll whatever their acrobatics style check was, or maybe it's a sleight of hand style check. Can't remember anymore, to try and disrupt the actual summoning circle by crossing out a section of it, or like there are so many different ways that they can make these checks. And the rules for a skills challenge stated that in a skills challenge, You couldn't use the same check twice in a row. So if one person did an Arcana check, the next person couldn't do an Arcana check. And so, yeah, it turned what could have been a very boring combat into something really, really interesting, because now there was a time limit, because if they didn't get it done in a certain number of turns, it was going to go off anyways, because that's how summoning circles work. And so it changed the entirety of the combat from, okay, guys, let's kill these two. Guys, we've got to stop this summoning circle. We have no idea what's going to come out. If I remember correctly, for that adventure, they did eventually fail it, and what came out was like a fire elemental style character that was rough. And they were still able to win, but it was a hard-won fight. So, yeah, stuff like that. Like, in the Roll20 marketplace, I found like a dozen different versions of clocks. And I eventually just settled on... I actually bought 2 different clocks add-ons that you have to add to your game in order to use them. But once they're in there, it's as simple as you drag the clock over, and then when you click on it, you can just tell it how many sections you want to fill. Is it the most intuitive thing that's ever existed? No. But it works really, really well. As long as you put it on the, as long as you put the token on the playmat somewhere, all of the players can see the clock, and they can tell how close they are to getting to the end of it. And it's, like I said, all I had to do was go search clocks in the Roll20 marketplace, and I had something perfect. Because the issue with clocks when you're not running at a physical table is finding a way so that everybody knows how full the clock is. And this was a really, really easy solution to that. So, yeah, if anyone tries to tell you that Roll20 is a shit program, either they have not used it in literal years, because it used to be real, real finicky, or they have some other bias against it. Maybe they tried it once and they didn't like it, or they've been using another, like they really like Fantasy Grounds and they hate the fact that it's significantly easier to get people to play on Roll20 than it is on Fantasy Grounds, because Fantasy Grounds costs money. And even if, I believe Fantasy Ground has a quote-unquote demo you can download so that you can actually play, but the GM has to have an actual paid version of it in order to use it. People aren't going to look at Fantasy Grounds and see a demo and think, oh, I can use that to play the game. It's extremely unintuitive. So, yeah. Like I said, I'm excited about this. I'm excited to see what happens to Demiplane moving forward, because thus far, Demiplane has been doing amazing, wonderful things. And, yeah, they... as far as I can tell, Darrington Press from Critical Role seems to like it, because both Candela Obscura and the playtest for Daggerheart are both on Demiplane. The character creator specifically for Daggerheart is wonderful. I absolutely adore it. It's how I've made, the only characters I've made for Daggerheart have been on there, and they've been absolutely great. So, yeah, I would love to see Demiplane sponsor Critical Role in the same way that D&D Beyond has sponsored them for years. Probably not for a D&D game, because D&D Beyond has a shit ton more money. But I think it might be pretty cool if eventually, if once Daggerheart officially comes up, and my theory for what's going to happen with Daggerheart is not going to replace D&D. Anyone that's saying, oh yeah, Critical Role is never going to play D&D again, you're 100% wrong, and you couldn't be more wrong. D&D has brand recognition. D&D has ease of understanding, because the system itself is not only relatively simple to understand, but all the terms and everything that exist in D&D exist in so many other things now that it's very easy for an audience to understand. And when an audience is watching an actual play or a live play, They need to be able to understand the system well enough to know when good things happen and when bad things happen. And Daggerheart is just, there's too many changes to it that makes it use words that are unfamiliar to the audience. So it requires the audience to learn a brand new system. And just too many people aren't going to do that. So no, they're not going to be giving up. As long as they're doing a main campaign, it will be in D&D. I will guarantee that. However, I could definitely see them doing kind of like what they're doing with Candela Obscura right now, though probably significantly more popular, having a side campaign or something that is Daggerheart. And I would love to see them exclusively play Daggerheart on Nexus. Because, again, Nexus, it's really good. So, anyway, I figured this is a good topic to talk about today. So, I'm going to let you guys go, but yeah, check out my most recent Essential Lessons 20. We talk about the Red Ranger, which is a cool role. And I am getting close to the end of Power Rangers, guys. I've only got 2 more rolls left, and then it's either going to be G.I. Joe or Transformers. So, yeah, cool stuff happening there. Anyway, it's going to be all for me today. I will see you guys in the next time, all right? Bye-bye.